Ukraine stares into its darkest and coldest hour. It's not just a war of missiles and drones, but a war of darkness, cold and survival. At minus 19 degrees Celsius, even breathing indoors becomes visible. Millions across the country are facing freezing nights without heat, without steady electricity and without certainty. Russian strikes continue to pound energy and heating infrastructure. President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared a state of emergency in the energy sector as the power grid struggles to survive. And to make matters worse for Ukraine, Zelensky has said that some West-supplied air defenses were out of ammunition. Now, Kyiv's mayor says that heating remains cut off to around 400 residential buildings. That number has come down sharply from nearly 6,000 after Monday's attack. But the crisis is far from over. The visuals alone tell the story. On your screens right now is not a blackout drill, not a ghost town, but the capital of Ukraine, where vast areas sit without electricity. Brought to its knees by winter and war. A city of nearly 3 million people now lives in near total darkness, fighting to stay warm as temperatures plunge. Authorities say the attacks have forced blackouts and emergency power cuts across multiple regions. Repair crews work under fire, while Ukraine leans heavily on air defenses and electricity imports to keep the grid from collapsing.
We have had no heating, no water, no light. We can only have light at night, this night. It was from 1 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the morning. The water was cold. There is no heating at all.
It's been a week of very harsh conditions, but we're okay. We'll endure it all. And yet we believe that we'll win everything. We'll fix everything.
Aid agencies warn that children now face serious danger. With homes unheated and electricity unreliable, the risk of hypothermia they saw grows by the day.
Basically, what we are worried and concerned about is that darkness and freezing temperatures intensify fear and stress but also can lead to exacerbation of the physical and mental health of children and families. Hypothermia is one of the concerns we have for the newborns right now.
According to Ukraine's security service, the scale of damage on the energy infrastructure has been staggering. Since early October 2025, the start of the heating season, 11 hydropower plants and 45 major thermal power plants have been hit. There have also been 49 direct air strikes on thermal facilities and 151 strikes on electrical substations, all carried out by drone and missile attacks. While Ukraine's energy minister says that over the past year, Russia has carried out 612 attacks on the energy sector. According to the Ukrainian service, the hardest hit regions include Kyiv and its surrounding area, Kharkiv, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Mykolaiv and Chernihiv. Zelensky said that his country isn't a stumbling block to peace, adding that there is a need to increase pressure on Russia in response to continued attacks on civilians and critical infrastructure. Kremlin, on the other hand, hailed renewed interest from Italy, France and Germany in dialogue with Moscow as a significant shift. Russia also condemned Britain's plan to help Ukraine develop a Nightfall ballistic missile, calling it a step away from peace. Further warning that any future Western forces deployed in Ukraine would be considered legitimate targets. In fact, just a short while ago, Zelensky said that Ukrainian negotiators are en route to US for security guarantees talks.
The Ukrainian delegation is currently on its way to the United States. If everything is finalized, if there is acceptance from the American side, because from our side, in principle, I believe that we are finished, and then it will be possible to sign during Davos.
Now, as darkness blankets Kyiv, the message from the nearly 4-year war is clear. Winter continues to be a major weapon. Shifting our focus, conflicts are raging across the world. The nuclear threat remains real. However, a significant milestone which augurs well for peace has been achieved this week. The world has now gone the longest time without a nuclear test since the dawn of a nuclear era on the 16th of July in 1945. On that fateful day, America had conducted the first ever nuclear test in New Mexico, leading up to the atomic bombing of Japan. The world's last nuclear test was conducted by North Korea in September 2017. The previous longest period without a test was from May 1998 to October 2006, when North Korea had conducted its first nuclear test. Now let's look at the status of nuclear testing globally. Overall, 2,056 nuclear tests have been conducted so far. United States accounts for over half of these 1,030 explosions. Although Russia ranks a close second with 715, its last official test happened in October 1990. Europe is also not far behind in the nuclear race. For instance, France carried out 210 tests, followed by the UK with 45. In Asia, China became the first country to become a nuclear power back in 1964. India and Pakistan joined this club later and even faced Western sanctions for their 1998 nuclear tests. However, recent moves of United States and Russia have reignited fears of nuclear test resumption. President Trump stirred a hornet's nest last year when he instructed the U.S. Department of War to begin testing nuclear weapons. He justified this move by accusing China, Russia and Pakistan of conducting clandestine tests. This triggered an immediate counter-reaction from Russia. President Vladimir Putin told the Kremlin officials to draft proposals for possible resumption of nuclear weapons testing.
As I stated in the address to the Federal Assembly in 2023, if the United States or other states parties to the relevant treaty conduct such tests, then Russia must also take appropriate reciprocal actions.
Now, the numbers, remember, depict the situation's gravity. As per SIPRI, Russia has world's largest stockpile of nuclear weapons with over 4,300 warheads, whereas US has 3,700 weapons. The possible lapse of START treaty, which limited the nuclear warheads that the US and Russia can deploy to 1,550, is a cautionary tale. The nuclear danger is clearly far from over. American President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on any country that trades with Iran. India is closely tracking developments in the West Asian country, not just as a regional crisis, but as a strategic test with direct implications for its connectivity and foreign policy. When the United States revoked the exception for India's Chabahar port project last year, the country got a 6-month waiver to exit in an orderly manner. The waiver kicked in from the 29th of October last year through to 26th of April 2026. However, back in September, India had hoped that the United States would backtrack and let the country operate the port.
On 28th October 2025, as you are aware, the US Department of Treasury had issued a letter outlining the guidance on the conditional sanctions waiver, which is valid till 26th April 2026. We remain engaged with the US side in working out this arrangement.
With the latest 25% tariff, the real question is, does India even have a choice anymore, or is exiting the project the only option left? Well, Chabahar port is in the Sistan-Baluchistan province in the southeastern Iran, not in the Persian Gulf. India uses it to get to Afghanistan and Central Asia by road and sea through Iran's eastern borders. The project's strategic goal is to increase maritime passage trade to Afghanistan and Central Asia. The International North-South Transport Corridor, or the INSTC, is building Chabahar as a way to get to both the east and the west sides of the Caspian Sea. The INSTC is a 7,200-kilometer network that connects road, train and sea links. It makes it easier to travel between India, Iran, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Russia, Central Asia and Europe. For New Delhi, Iran remains a critical gateway to Afghanistan and Central Asia at a time when overland access through Pakistan is effectively blocked. The Chabahar port, where India has invested over $1 billion and holds a 10-year management agreement, is central to this strategy. Any prolonged instability or regime uncertainty in Iran could disrupt India's only viable western corridor and complicate its regional outreach. Now, economically, India-Iran trade is modest but crucial to its diversification strategy. Bilateral trade right now stands at about $1.7 billion annually, largely driven by Indian exports of basmati rice, pharmaceuticals and food items. Iran, remember, is among the top destinations for Indian basmati, importing over 1 million tons. However, the sharp fall in the rial and the removal of food import subsidies have already hit Indian exporters. While most trade falls under humanitarian exemptions, further instability could disrupt payments, logistics, and long-standing commercial ties. India is also assessing the potential fallout for its energy security and financial markets. Nearly half of India's crude oil imports and more than half of its LNG imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which is a narrow maritime passage between Iran and Oman that connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea. It is one of the world's most critical energy choke points, with nearly 1/5 of global oil trade. Any escalation involving Iran raises the risk of supply disruptions and higher global oil prices. Analysts warn that sustained tensions could weaken the rupee, accelerate foreign fund outflows, and even push up inflation.